Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wall has it, down to 7, down to 6 to shoot. Here's Gaines, going to go up for 3.
About time somebody made a shot. Gaines slaps 5 with Tim Ingles running down the floor and iced the game.
Friars dribble out the clock, and it's 72 to 57. What a defensive performance by the Friars.
Good morning and welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the H&H Chevrolet stage. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me.
Man, it's a beautiful morning.
It is early Christmas. Early signing day for college football, and we've already got Dylan Raiola in the bag. We got him, ladies and gentlemen. The pen has been put to paper. He tweeted it out this morning. Nebraska football account tweeted it out this morning, which means they have received the letter of intent because they're not allowed to say anything until that letter is signed. Nebraska football official account has tweeted out that he is in, and they tweeted out his highlights, which are phenomenal, by the way.
I think he's a gel pen guy.
I love a gel pen.
I feel like that's like a Dylan Raiola.
Got like a real smooth, it allows the signature to flow.
Shane, no, he's not using a quill.
He's a calligrapher, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think so.
He is in. Dylan Raiola is in. We will have wall-to-wall coverage of National Signing Day. Shout out to our guy RS listening in the Philippines. I had a guy message me the other day, says he listens from Greece every day.
That's pretty sweet.
That's pretty cool.
You know what's awesome about that too? When you can have friends all over the world, normally you have a place to stay if you ever want to visit that part of the world.
That's true. We ever need to go see Greece, where we got you. We got it covered.
I'll go soon. I would love to check out Greece.
I'm more of an Italy guy, but I took.
I'll go everywhere. Is there somebody in Italy too?
We'll find somebody. Because I took Latin in high school, so I kind of like Italy and the Roman Empire and all that kind of good stuff. But good morning to all of you joining us on the stream. We're on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook as well. We have a great show for you here today. Coming up in just a few minutes, actually, we're going to talk to Caleb Benning. He is signing with Nebraska this morning as well. From Westside, he obviously two-time state champ. For my money, was the best player in the state all year. If it wasn't him, it was his teammate Anthony Rizak is one of those two guys for sure. He will be signing with Nebraska. He'll be joining us at 7:10. At 7:30, we will get the highest rated prospect from the state, Carter Nelson. We'll be calling him as he signs with Nebraska this morning as well. 7:45, we're going to talk to our guy Steve Wiltfong, the GOAT from 24/7 Sports. We talked to him about a week and a half ago, and all the good things started happening for Nebraska. So we're going to talk to him again, maybe get a little good juju here on signing day.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Ryan Wingo is not going to Texas. He is ending up at Nebraska.
Did somebody say KJ Bolden? No, we're not expecting any five-star flips today, but there might be a couple little surprises for Nebraska here on signing day. But not necessarily well-kept surprises, but we might have a couple guys as well. We'll talk to Brian Christopherson at 9 o'clock today because he's covering signing day over at Bellevue West. And then we'll also talk to our guy Andy Kendeigh at 8:30 from KETV. And then we will wrap up the show with Anna Bellinghausen.
We are loaded
today. She is our very own Hurrdat Sports colleague. She was down in Tampa last week. We'll put a bow on our volleyball Final Four coverage. Also, we'll talk to her about the Creighton Blue Jays.
Yes.
And their big matchups tonight with Villanova, Doug McDermott's retirement ceremony. I will be there with bells on watching the Jays and reminiscing about the Doug McDermott era.
So are you going to be like Jonah Hill in that GIF that like has his hands out wide I can't even remember what that's from, but are you going to react like that when you see Doug step foot on the floor?
You know what's kind of funny is, as much as I love Doug, and I do, his time at Creighton is some of my favorite time being a Creighton fan. I would react more that way for Ethan Wragge. I have like a weird I have a huge, weird, like, man crush
Not
on
me.
Ethan Ravi. It is, I named my dog after him. Like, my dog's name, Rocky. One of my dogs' name is Rocky. Now, one of my dogs' name is Doug, but he's actually named after a Douglas fir Christmas tree, not Doug McDermott, because he was a Christmas present to my wife. I swear. I promise. But no, I
can't trust somebody that eats dinner at 8 p.m.
Dude, I was just getting started. I hadn't even got my food yet. I texted Andrew last night, setting up figuring out the show and stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I'll email this back to you. I'll email you the rundown when I get home from dinner." And I didn't even realize what time it was. Mm-hmm. But we just kind of go out to eat whenever it's ready, whenever I'm ready.
And my response was, "Dang 8 p.m.er."
I had no idea what you were talking about. I was like, "What?" I didn't read it right. I was like, "Did he just sit on his phone? What happened?"
Because it does kind of look like that when you put PM-ER together.
Yeah, I was like, "This feels like a typo. He'll correct it later." And then you didn't, and I was like, "I'm just gonna ignore that."
Not shocked.
But yeah, that is what we've got on tap for you here today. We're gonna play a little game today as well. We've got in honor of National Signing Day, where a lot of our lives are devoted to the decisions of 17 and 18-year-olds. Totally normal, not weird at all. It's only weird when you talk about it. But we have decided to play a game where Andrew is going to quiz the old men in the room, that's me and Shane, about the slang that the kids nowadays are saying. Yeah. And I think I'm going to call the game Kids Nowadays, because that's about the oldest man, the biggest old man thing I can think of is that, or Schmidt from New Girl just yelling, "Use!"
I've never seen New Girl, but I've only seen clips on TikTok.
Oh, you got
dude, I used to go through this with DB all the time. Like the thing going through my TikTok right now,
yeah,
you'll laugh. Everybody hates Chris.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw one clip and I watched the whole thing, and now TikTok thinks I love Everybody Hates Chris. And it's like bringing me back to when I used to watch that show during my childhood, and I'm just like, this is kind of great. I'm cool with this.
That's super funny. When Andre Brower died the other day, the Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I watched one of the tribute videos to him, and then it was just 2 days of nothing, of super sad Captain Holt videos. And I was like, I am not emotionally ready for this right now. This is too much.
A great show.
Oh, I love that show. Terrific stuff there. Anyway, not talking about sitcoms this morning,
but we will talk Gen Z slang terms.
Yes, we will.
We play that.
We will talk about the youths today here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That will be our game of the day. But yeah, with just a couple minutes here, we're going to talk to Caleb Benning. And right now, just as it stands, Nebraska's current ranking in the class before all the signatures are in for Nebraska and for other teams as well is 24/7. They're sitting at 20th for high school class only. The composite or the overall takes into transfers, and Nebraska hasn't taken any transfers yet. And I think they're going to take a few. I don't think it's going to be very many. Right. It's not going to be like last year. I think they took 12.
I'm still a little surprised at this point that they haven't taken at least one.
Yeah.
But
I think they will.
It's like a surprise, but it's also like a little surprise. We know how Coach Rule likes to operate.
Absolutely.
He wants to build his roster from high school on up. But with the holes on the roster and where they could really use a vet in the room,
yes,
that's why it's a little surprising to me. I don't want to say oh my goodness, I am just why haven't they done it yet, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the places that we're looking at are wide receiver. I would expect them to grab a wide receiver at some point, and I would expect them to get maybe a little bit of help in the linebacker room as well. But joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline on National Signing Day is Caleb Benning. For my money, the best player in the state. Caleb, what's going on, buddy?
Nothing much. How are you?
Man, we're doing good. Just tell me, how you feeling right now? You're about to sign, right? You haven't signed yet?
Yes, sir. I'm signing at 7:30.
All right. Well, we appreciate you sneaking us in here before that happens. Just as you approach the moment where you're signing and officially ending up with Nebraska, just what are some of the things you're thinking about as you process this moment?
Just how long the process took. It was all 4 years. A lot of thinking, a lot of talking, and just happy it's finally signing day and I can put the pen to the paper.
CB, your recruitment was near silent compared to most. Just doing you instead of worrying about showing everybody who was on the offer list. I remember having chats with you before, and you never let the outside noise influence this decision. It was you and only you. You made the call. What ultimately did it for you at Nebraska that gave you the confidence this was the place for you?
Definitely Coach Rule. Sitting down and meeting with him in January when he got the job. He gave off a great vibe, a very personable guy, a guy I could trust. And then just building the relationships with Coach Cooper, Coach White. I had about an hour and a half sit down with Coach Cooper, and we just got on the same page and really let it be known that we both want each other. It was just a matter of building that relationship, and those guys did a great job with that.
Caleb, you mentioned that word trust with Coach Rule. That's something we hear about a lot. What does he do? And I guess, how does he show you that he's trustworthy? Is it just that his actions match up with his words, or how did you get the vibe that you could trust Coach Rule?
100% his actions match up with his words, but just talking to him, you could tell he's very genuine. Like you said, his actions back up his words, and I would bet I'm not the only person to say that they trust Coach Rule with all their heart. So just having those other peers and seeing how the team followed him this year, the coaching staff, everybody rallies around him. It's definitely something I want to be a part of.
All right, Caleb, I know you're your own man, but I have to ask, with such deep familial roots in the state of Nebraska, what's it going to mean to you on an emotional level to throw on that Nebraska jersey for the first time?
It's gonna mean a lot. I'm playing for my family. Obviously, my dad went there, and so a lot comes with representing your family. But I'm gonna work my tail off to make sure I do the best job possible.
All right, Caleb, I got to ask you. You played both ways at Omaha West Side. With I know everybody looks at you as a defensive back. With a 5-star quarterback going into the room, is there any party that's like, hey, maybe I play a little offense too?
Maybe. We'll see what the future holds. That would be pretty fun.
They at least got to get you back there returning some punts, though. Am I right? I know you like doing that.
Has to.
Yeah, I love returning. So whatever the team needs, I'm doing.
Hey, CB, how do you think the culture at Westside has set you up for the culture at Nebraska?
It's definitely a brotherhood. I would say it's the best culture I've been a part of. It's a very mature culture. A lot is expected of you. No one expects anything more from anyone else than themselves. So just making sure you take care of what you take care of, and that ultimately creates a lot of trust. So that carries over to college for sure.
Caleb, we appreciate your time. I know it's a big day for you, so I appreciate you giving us a few minutes. Congratulations, and best to everything for you and your family.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
See you, CB.
See ya.
That is Caleb Benning from Omaha West Side. He will be signing in just about 15 minutes with Nebraska.
I called him Caleb, and I'm like, I don't like that. I started with CB because that's what I call him, and then I went to Caleb with my next one, and I go, this sounds weird. I'm going back to the OG term.
It's kind of funny because it took me a minute, because when you're around kind of the family and some of his teammates and stuff, everybody calls him Lob. And
it's true.
The first I don't know, the first couple of times I was like, who are you talking about? And then context clues, I figured it out, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
But it was I'm not gonna lie, it was real confusing.
Well, there's just ways to identify people.
Yeah.
And once you veer off that path,
mm-hmm.
kind of makes you feel a little queasy when you say it a different way, because even with my family, okay, so my brother's name is Joseph, called him Joseph forever. I get to high school, everybody calls him Joe.
Yeah.
So just because I'm around that setting for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I start calling him Joe. Then my family starts giving me well, they give me the business for starting to call him Joe. And I'm just like, wait a second here.
That's
like,
not what we call him here.
This is his name.
Yeah.
His name is Joe now.
Yeah.
It's not Joseph. It's Joe. And that's how I'm sticking with it. And I haven't called him Joseph since. It would be weird for me to go home and say, what up, Joseph?
Yeah, that's how, I mean, so my best friend, his name is Eric Buskey, but I always called him Buskey because when we met in high school, there were like 3 Erics in the class that we were in. And so I just started calling him by his last name. And everybody calls him by his last name now. And so either when my mom, I think it was my mom,
everybody
at some point in like, I think late high school, she goes, "Oh, are you going over to Buskey's house?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going over to Eric's." And she's like, "Who's Eric?" And like, she did not realize that Eric and Buskey were the same person.
I'll tell you what though, if you were standing, and you yelled my name from a distance around my college buddies and you yelled Andrew, people would be shocked if I reacted.
What do they call you?
They call me Raj.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yep. They just go with the last name.
And if I call out Raj, I'm talking to my brother, but it's it's RAJ. So it's a little different.
From Big Bang Theory.
Basically, yeah. So we've got plenty more coming up on signing day here today. We're going to talk to Carter Nelson at 7:30. We're also going to we're going to dive a little bit more into that transfer portal as well. And we can do that now, actually.
That was some of the stuff I've been seeing is bizarre. But the thing that was most bizarre to me was Dante Moore going back to Oregon.
Yeah, that was super weird, right? So he had been committed to Oregon last year during the recruiting process. This is a 5-star quarterback. He was top 5 guy in his recruiting class last year, was committed to Oregon, decommitted, signed with UCLA, and now is transferring from UCLA, going back to Oregon. It feels like a little bit of buyer's remorse here.
But Dylan Gabriel
is also going to Oregon.
Going to Oregon and will be the starter next year.
Yes, absolutely.
Like there's no doubt in my mind that Dante Moore will ride the bench for a year.
Yes.
Until
which maybe he redshirts, maybe his year at UCLA his numbers at UCLA weren't very good.
But he only played 4 games at UCLA.
Did he only play 4 games this year?
Yeah.
I thought he played more than that for some reason. I'll look that up as we go to Tim on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Tim, what's going on, man?
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Ravi, how you doing?
Hey, Tim, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing good. Hey, I'm celebrating National Signing Day down here in Florida, and I had to listen to you guys on the iHeartRadio.
My man.
That's what I'm talking about, Tim. Much appreciated.
Yeah, love you guys. So glad you're doing this, but let's be honest, signing day is more important than you are.
Most things are more important than we are.
But anyways, in the spirit of this season, which of course signing day, not Christmas season yet, but so Danny Dimes is coming, and I love that kid. I don't know anything about how he plays football, but the fact that he recruited and he seems to love Nebraska, what are his chances? I just want to see where you see the quarterback depth chart, and then I want to throw in, is Casey Thompson going to come and then be a coach next year?
Man, Tim, speaking my language with Casey Thompson.
It was great to hear from you, buddy. I appreciate you, and we'll answer those questions for you. So first and foremost, the quarterback room, I think, ends up being obviously Dylan Raiola, Danny Kaelin, and yes, I do believe Casey Thompson is back in the quarterback room next year. We haven't had anything official yet, but I do believe that is happening.
And then lock in Chubba Purdy and Heinrich Haarberg for now until we see because once that quarterback room starts to get deeper, I think then you'll look at Purdy and you'll look at Haarberg and think, okay, are they going to stick around? Is Chubba going to really compete for that job? Haarberg is a weird one because he wasn't intended to be the quarterback this season.
Yes.
He spent most of his time in the tight end room versus the quarterback room. So it wouldn't shock me if they're like, hey, thanks for filling in. You did the best you could, but because of what we have now, let's move you back toward more that athlete skill position. And then, you know what? Use him out of the wildcat if you want every now and then.
And have him be an emergency.
Take him like a Taysom Hill sort of role. That quarterback room could get deep, but I think it will get deeper when they add Casey Thompson. I still feel good about that.
I
love the idea. Yeah. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again today. I think he is a perfect fit to be a quote unquote quarterback player coach.
Yeah, he's a mentor. He's a mentor role.
And he will fit that role perfectly because of how much of a coach junkie he already is.
Yeah. So I think what happens is I think Chubba at least sees the spring out. I'd be surprised if he didn't at least see where he was. And maybe if he's first string, second string, we don't know at that point. Maybe he sticks around. If it's been pretty clear that's like, I'm going to be behind a couple guys, I wouldn't be surprised if Chubba moves on. I do think Heinrich sticks around because it just seems like he wants to be at Nebraska. I think that, and Chubba is graduating, so he's able to leave again. Heinrich, I think, stays as a kind of H-back, tight end, emergency quarterback type role. So it's like, hey, we've got a guy in our back pocket just in case everything hits the fan again this year.
Please no.
Dear God, please no. But I think it's going to be Dylan. I think Casey Thompson will be your 2. I think Danny Kaelin will redshirt and be your 3rd string quarterback, which that allows him to play 4 games. But I think the goal is for him to redshirt. And then Heinrich Harburg is your emergency guy. I'd be surprised if Chubba's in the room in the fall. If he is, that's great. That's even added depth there. But I think with those 4 guys, you can feel reasonably confident in, because you'll have the number 1 recruit in the country and then 3 guys who have started college football games. But I will say from the Danny Kaelin standpoint, to answer the other part of Tim's question, I think he needs a couple years to develop. I think that's the best thing. We were talking about this before we got on the air. I think the best thing for him and the best chance for him to be successful will be redshirting this year, maybe seeing limited action in those handful of games, and then getting a year or 2 behind Dylan. Because, I mean, I think the best case scenario, best of both worlds for everybody involved here, is Dylan Raiola starts for 3 years, and he is the guy who we thought he was. Danny Kaelin redshirts, then backs up for 2 years. He's still got 2 years of eligibility at that point to be the guy at Nebraska if that's what he really wants to do. And it seems like that's what he really wants to do. And I think that gives everybody the best opportunity to be successful in this situation. Because Dylan's ahead of Danny Kaelin. Like, I don't know what to, there's no way around that.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah,
there.
like that's the hierarchy of what's happening here. That doesn't mean Danny Kaelin can't develop and become and start to catch up. But he is going to need that time. I actually think this timeline could work out for both of them pretty well.
What Danny Kaelin should be thinking about right now, to all the D's, man. What Danny should be thinking about right now is how can I develop over the next 2-3 years?
Absolutely.
Like that is his mindset. Mm-hmm. It's not how can I play next year? It's how can I develop it? If we really want to be realistic about the approach,
how can I get better?
You can strive to want to be the starter next year. That's fine. But maybe sit back in your seat and think, okay, the way the stars are aligning right now, it doesn't seem overly possible that it's going to be me, mm-hmm. but how can I set myself up in the best position to be that guy in 2-3 years' time? That's what he really should be thinking about right now.
Coming up next, he just signed as a Nebraska Cornhusker. Carter Nelson will join us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha and ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. Hello. We have you covered on this National Signing Day, and we are going to talk to our next signee, Carter Nelson, on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Carter, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Fantastic. How are you guys?
Good, man. Good morning.
We are doing well. First and foremost, congratulations. Saw that you just signed your national letter of intent to play for Nebraska. How does it feel to officially be a Cornhusker?
It's awesome, and I'm just excited to get down there as soon as possible and get to work with the guys. So.
Carter, I've always been curious about this, and you're the best person to ask because you played it. How do you feel the 8-man game is going to translate to playing ball at the next level?
The nicest thing about it is I've played plenty of positions through high school, so I'm going to be able to understand what maybe sometimes a quarterback's going to be feeling and stuff like that. So it's definitely been really fun, and I think it'll help me understand the game just a little bit too.
Carter, you were a super highly sought-after recruit, not just by Nebraska, but by pretty much every powerhouse
intense recruiting
program in the country. At the end of the day, what made you want to be a part of what Coach Rule is building here, as opposed to, I mean, having your pick of going to a place like Georgia where they've put out good tight ends, or Notre Dame where they've got a lot of history there as well? What made Nebraska stand out to you?
Having the combination of family, and knowing kind of the direction the program is going right now, I'm super confident that we can do great things there, and I'm really excited to do it there. So,
Carter, I know throughout this recruiting process that you got pretty close with Danny Kaelin, who is expected to sign today as well. Is that friendship something that recently brewed, or have you guys been connected for a while now?
No, I'd say we've been in contact for a couple of years now, because we've both been on recruiting trips. And that's how I met him and all that fun stuff, and that's how I met all the other guys too. So,
Carter, what are you most excited about to get started with Nebraska?
I'm excited to show people something, not personally, but as a team. I know that Nebraska's been waiting to put something out there for a while, and I think we're going to be able to do it, and that's what I'm excited about.
You mentioned, Carter, that Nebraska is headed in the right direction, not only as a program, but even in this recruiting class. You look up and down the list, and you have some good variety, but you also have the number one quarterback in the class come in there as well. What's it going to be like working with Dylan Raiola?
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited to see how him and Danny complement each other in practice and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to see them work.
Carter, you mentioned Danny and Dylan being in the same room. You'll be in the same room, we think, as a tight end as a guy like Thomas Fedoni, who is a super highly rated recruit as well. How much can that competition in your position group make you better?
Oh, it's going to make us so much better. That's the biggest thing, is practicing against the best is going to make you the best. And so that's why I'm excited with how good our defense has been playing. I'm excited to be able to play against them, and then I'm really excited to be able to learn from somebody like Thomas, who has a little bit of experience and definitely knows the ropes now. So,
Carter, we'll let you go on this and let you go enjoy your day. Take me through your relationship with this coaching staff. What have they meant to you throughout this commitment journey, and how do you see yourself fitting into their vision for the team?
Yeah, they've helped me get through a lot of stuff, and we definitely have really, really close bonds and everything. So I'm really excited to be able to get down there, and all their visions and everything are pretty much the same exact thing that I want. And at the end of the day, all we want to do is win. So I'm excited to be able to get down there and work with them.
Carter, congratulations. We're excited to have you coming down to Nebraska. Best of luck to you and your family.
Thank you.
See you, Carter.
That's Carter Nelson, the pride of Ainsworth, Nebraska. He is officially in, signed his letter of intent.
How about that story, too, last week when Coach Rule and company were down in Ainsworth visiting, and they stopped by the wedding.
They crashed a wedding?
Yeah, and gave a signed Husker helmet to the groom. I'm assuming the bride, too, but I think the groom was most excited because he was in the photo.
Yes, yeah.
But I thought that was sweet.
That was super funny.
That just also goes to show the personality of this staff.
Yes, yeah.
Like they're not bigger than any one man, and they're cool with being a community member. Every last one of them. I mean, Coach Rule for sure. We heard him say "Hey, I want to go to farmers markets with my families on Saturday and meet some people, shake some hands, take some photos."
Yeah.
But the fact that you're doing that while on a major recruiting visit, pretty cool to see them kind of just step away from work and get into Husker fan mode.
Yeah, well, and we talk a lot about Coach Rule being comfortable in his own skin and being true to himself and stuff like that. There's a lot of college football coaches that would be like, maybe it's not the best time for this or whatever, but he's just who he is. And we heard Caleb talk about that. His actions back up his word, or his words back up. Nope, other way. Actions back up his words. Had it right the first time. And he just is really just genuine to himself. And I mean, there were 9 staff members there. And so you've got this whole gaggle of Nebraska.
They had their own table.
Just rolling up to a wedding. That's like the most small town Nebraska thing I've ever heard in my life is the local star has the coaches in town to recruit him, and he's like, let's go hit up this wedding. Like,
and where did you see that sign? Right? Like, I know that there was probably one event center in Ainsworth,
sure,
that everybody goes to for this wedding. But was Carter like invited to the wedding, and that's why the coaching staff went to? I need more to this story.
This is how I imagine it played out. Right? It's
a Hallmark movie.
Yes. This girl comes in from the big city, got stranded in Ainsworth. No,
the plane didn't want to take off just yet, so the coaching staff was stuck, and they decided to go to this wedding.
They had to refuel. No, I imagine they were there to visit Carter, and they were like, "Hey, we got to go to this wedding," and the coaches were just like, "Yeah, let's go." And they were like, "Oh, we didn't mean you, but sure, why not?" I mean, what good Nebraskan in Ainsworth, Nebraska wouldn't be thrilled to have Coach Rule and staff at their wedding, right? I mean, come on.
It's pretty cool.
It is cool stuff. We love stories like that about Coach Rule, about the staff. And I mean, it seems like a match made in heaven with Nebraska and Carter Nelson as we continue to see the signees roll in on the official Nebraska Twitter page. That's how I'm gauging when they're official, because they're not allowed to say anything until they receive that letter. So we've got Donovan Jones from Omaha North just signed. We mentioned earlier Grant Bricks has signed as well. They're out at our friends Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. I believe KETV. We're going to talk to Andy Kendeigh later. They're out at Bellevue West right now for Danny Kalin, Davon Hall, and Isaiah McMorris. They're all signing this morning, I believe at 8, I think 8:30. They're signing to Nebraska, so that'll
all of the times kind of get lost.
Yeah,
in my head throughout the day.
Yeah,
whether it's early signing or my own schedule, everything gets lost.
Yes, so I really don't. I don't remember if it's 8 or 8:30, but they're all sitting at a table about ready to sign right now. So we'll talk with Brian Christopherson later about that as well. But big day for Nebraska, as I mentioned, currently ranked 20th in the poll, the rankings of the 24/7 team rankings for recruitings this year. They will probably move a little depending on if they get any surprises, depending on where other teams' surprises land as well. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out as we go through the day.
And I know we're talking to Steve Wiltfong next. I'd be curious because we talked to Shafe yesterday and asked about some surprises that he was kind of, hearing or seeing. And he kind of leaned more to there won't be any major surprises, at least today. But I'd be curious if Steve, whether it's with Nebraska or teams within the Big Ten or nationally, will end up seeing some surprises. Because I know I brought up Wingo's name just kind of as a joke.
Yeah.
But with the way Mizzou is recruiting, is that a real possibility that Ryan Wingo says no to Texas and says yes to Mizzou? Those are the sort of surprises that I'm curious about.
Well, and I mentioned KJ Bolden. People do expect him to flip from Florida State, I think, to Auburn. So, and Nebraska has signed a transfer player this morning as well. We will get to that on the other side. We'll also get to, as you mentioned, Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 Sports. He's the recruiting GOAT. We've got him next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on National Signing Day on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me.
Hello.
We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, and ESPN Tri-Cities. We're joined now by the Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports, Steve Wiltfong, on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Steve, what's going on, man?
Good morning. How we doing?
Really good.
Are doing great. You know, I feel like we have to have a little come to Jesus moment here. So you were on with us last Monday, and about 8 hours later, the Dylan Raiola stuff broke. Please tell me you weren't holding out on us, Steve.
Well, I obviously, when I put in the crystal ball for Nebraska, that's how I thought it would play out. You know, now it's recruiting, so you're a little guarded when you've been doing this a long time, and try not to speak in definites and absolutes. Things can change on the fly, and Dylan was continuing to maintain communication with Mike Bobo and Coach Van Gorder and the Georgia staff. But when I put that crystal ball prediction in for Nebraska ahead of the official visit, I felt really good that he'd end up being a Husker based on the intel, and that's what happened.
Steve, are you really that guarded when you're 91% correct?
Well, it's the 9% that haunts
you. Steve, we definitely appreciate you joining us this morning. I know you're super busy. There's some really high-profile guys, not for Nebraska, but in general in the national recruiting scene that you've kind of got feelers out that they might flip. What are some of the most interesting cases, in your opinion, of that situation?
You're saying nationally, what are the biggest storylines today?
Yeah, like which guys that you think might flip are the kind of the biggest storylines?
Not Nebraska related. Sorry, I got distracted by a text message.
Yeah. Oh no, all good. We know 8 hours after we have you on, something Nebraska will break, so we're good.
Yeah, no, it should be a good day for Nebraska. You know, the Huskers are in the top 20 of our rankings, number 19 nationally in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings. Guys like Amari Sanders are out there as they go into their announcements. So it should be a strong close. You know, obviously the biggest national storylines, will Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 player in the country, sign with Ohio State? I think he will. But Florida State, Miami, been trying to chip away there. DJ Lagway, the number 2 quarterback in the country, will he sign with Florida? I think he will. But USC trying to come in at the buzzer and change that. Maybe the Aggies as well. KJ Bolden, the number 1 safety in the country, will he sign with Florida State? Or will he go to Georgia or Auburn? 5-star receiver Ryan Wingo, will he sign with Texas? You know, they were talking with Coach Drinkwitz last night. The Rayolas have been trying to reach out to the Wingos and get in there. So we'll see what happens, you know?
You know, it's funny that you bring up Ryan Wingo, because I was asking that question out loud, and no one could really provide a good answer because we don't know, like you know, Steve, with how strong Mizzou is looking this season and how they're set up for next season. That has to be a huge pull for the in-state kid.
Well, particularly with Ryan Wingo, Coach Peeler, Missouri's receivers coach, has got such a track record right now. He developed A.J. Brown, developed DK Metcalf, developed Luther Burden. Mizzou's a top 10 team right now. There's just a lot of excitement and energy around that program. There's a lot of investment around that program. So, you know, they're trying at the buzzer to flip him from Texas, but Ryan loves Texas. So we'll see what happens.
We're talking with Steve Wiltfong, the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports. Steve, you know, we've got a lot of the usual suspects in the team rankings up at the very top. Your Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama's, Texas is in the top 5, Florida State's in the top 5. Has there been any teams whose efforts, either for the good or the bad, have surprised you at all this year? You know, we used to see Clemson kind of up in that top 5 a lot. They're down at 15 this year. Has anybody's class surprised you at all?
Well, I think when you look at the rating, you look at the standings this year, you know, Texas continues to recruit at a national title level, looking for a 3rd straight top 5 class as they move into the SEC. Oklahoma's in the top 10 for a 2nd straight year. Dan Lanning in Oregon, what they've done on the trail and in the portal is special. Notre Dame's kind of been a mainstay in the top 10 under Marcus Freeman and his staff. Auburn's trying to rebuild that program under Hugh Freeze and company. They start the day number 11. They can finish in the top 10 with some of the fish that they still have out there. There's a lot of energy around that program as well.
Steve, with Evan Stewart now on the market, where do you think the former number 1 prospect ends up?
Which prospect? I'm sorry.
Evan Stewart,
the transfer
from A&M.
Yeah, so
the former number 1 prospect.
You know, former number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
That's what they're. Yeah. I think that you know, it's obviously very early that he went into the portal. I think, you know, Alabama's a school instantly that I would have an eye on. But now that he's in the portal, other programs can, you know, take their swing and see what happens.
Steve, as we get through this early signing period, it's taken a lot of the kind of the drama out of some of the later, whether it's the February recruiting period or the later spring transfer portal. How much movement do you kind of expect after today as we get to either the later signing period or the spring transfer portal?
Well, I think over 90% of the high school recruits will be done today. So there'll still be some stories to follow after that, but most of the high school recruiting will be done. You know, a lot of the portal stuff, there's another window that opens up in early January, so we'll see what happens there. Then after spring ball, you'll have some more portal stuff. So portals, they got their windows where it's super hot, and whenever that window's open, there's a lot of movement.
Well, Steve, speaking of the portal, or continuing off of my last point with Evan Stewart, I'm thinking about Florida State's situation a little bit and who's going to replace Jordan Travis at quarterback. They've talked to Cam Ward. They've talked to DJU a little bit. Who do you think will be quarterbacking the Seminoles next season?
Well, you're on it. Those are the two guys that they brought on campus and they're recruiting. And Cam Ward also visited Miami. So I think, Florida State and Miami are in a great spot for Cam Ward. He's kind of the coveted guy by a lot of programs. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those programs he chooses. And then DJ's obviously a guy that Florida State was invested in also. I don't know which one of the two that they'll ultimately end up with, but they're obviously near the top for both.
And Steve, Florida State also has a true freshman, a very highly touted true freshman coming in this class as well. Do you think they're really going to go all in on a transfer to try and give him some time to get ready?
I think they all absolutely are in the market for a veteran. I think that's clear with the two guys that they brought on campus. This is a program now that has expectations of competing for a playoff spot in a championship year in and year out. And to do that, your quarterback room has to be right. That doesn't mean that you don't believe in the young guys, but you have to create a competitive environment that has that position humming at the highest possible level.
And going to the other side of the coast, Steve, let's go to Oregon here because they get Dillon Gabriel and then kind of a weird signing with Dante Moore. And I call it weird. Maybe I guess I used the term bizarre earlier on because if I remember correctly, Dante Moore didn't want to sit behind Bo Nix. So he goes to UCLA to play and now he's going to go back to Oregon. And if I had to predict it, the way Dillon Gabriel's been playing football, it doesn't seem like Dante Moore has a step on him. And so he'll be backing up Dillon Gabriel now. Did you find that move a little weird for Dante Moore?
Well, I didn't think that Dante Moore cared about going in and backing up Bo Nix. There was some logistics that changed at Oregon. The lead recruiter, Kenny Dillingham, who was the offensive coordinator when Dante Moore was committed to the Ducks, he takes the head coaching job at Arizona State. And I think at the end of the process, with a lot of moving parts, at that point, it opened the door for a school like UCLA to come in and make an attractive offer to Dante Moore, which they did. They got it done, and he committed as a freshman and played, but finds his way back in the portal. He's just looking for a place that's going to give him a chance to be the best player he ultimately can be. And Oregon is a place where he'll be surrounded by great players, in his opinion, play for a really good coaching staff inside a good culture, and coming in and being number two behind Dillon Gabriel, knowing that there's a runway to you to lead a program that has a chance to win a national championship moving forward is big.
Steve, as we let you go here after this, I just want to. You mentioned Amari Sander earlier. We had heard some things at Nebraska about maybe Vincent Shaver or Larry Tarver as well. Out of those three guys, what would be your guess that Nebraska ends up with?
I think all of them. I think they get them all. I think that it's going to be a fun day for Nebraska. I anticipate them getting at least three more commitments. And one of them may have already happened for all I know. Commitments are flying off the shelves right now at 8:54 in the morning. My phone just keeps jingling here, and guys are committing, guys are signing. So it's kind of hard to keep up with all of it. But I have Nebraska predicted to land all three of those guys from South Florida.
Steve, got about 30 seconds here. Do you know much about Blyle Hill?
I just have heard that Nebraska's in great shape there. Did he already?
He did. He came through to Nebraska this morning.
Yeah, big portal pickup, a guy that's got some serious traits and upside, and that's what Coach Rule and company. That's their lane. They love finding guys that they can project out. They have all the confidence in the world that they can squeeze every ounce of talent out of you if you fit their culture, and that's the guy that checked all the boxes, and Nebraska fans should be excited. That's
Steve Wiltfong, Director of Scouting for 24/7 Sports. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're busy. Enjoy the rest of a very busy day for you.
See you, Steve.
That is Steve Wiltfong of 24/7 Sports. Coming up next, we're going to try and translate what some of these kids are saying out on Twitter on National Signing Day. We will have more coverage coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me.
Good morning.
We're about to play a little game here with trying to figure out what kids these days are saying. But what Adam Gorney is saying about kids these days, and Adam Gorney is the national recruiting director for Rivals and Yahoo Sports, is that Ryan Wingo is apparently still asleep. The five-star wide receiver.
Is that so?
Currently committed to Texas. There's apparently, according to Steve Wiltfong, the Rayolas have reached out to Wingo. Missouri apparently in the chase for Wingo as well. And I don't know if he's kidding or not. I don't know what this is, but he says Ryan Wingo is still apparently sleeping, so don't expect any final announcement one way or another anytime soon. Yeah, get your beauty sleep, Ryan Wingo.
Yeah,
it's
for you, man.
Important. But I do want to tell you about our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. They've been family owned and operated in Omaha for over 25 years. They've been first place best of Omaha for 18 years running. They've got 4 great metro area locations, and they can work on anything that you've got, anything from a Ford to a Tesla. They've got you covered because they invest in staying up to date with the latest technology in this ever-changing business. The other thing they do is they give back to their community with every car repaired. Go to dingmans.com for more information about their services or about their give back program. That is dingmans.com. We are playing a game here, brought to you by our friends at Dingman's. Andrew, why don't you take it away?
So this game has everything to do with what the kids are saying these days. And I don't know how in touch you both are with these slang terms, but I thought it would be fun on a day that is centered around high school kids to play a game that is right in their backyard, right in their wheelhouse, I guess I should say.
Right in their sweet spot.
Not us, though.
Nope.
Not you guys. There are even some words that I came across that I'm like, this is going to be kind of tough. I used more of the ones that I know versus all of them out there.
Okay.
But I have 8 in front of me. We'll go through the 8. I'm going to ask you both to explain what you think it means.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there. If we get through all 8 pretty fast, we'll go to the backup list.
Okay.
That has some more translations of words.
Okay.
And then it will get a little bit harder, a little bit more difficult.
All
Side
right.
note, after I don't want to like sit here and talk about Mizzou all day. Although I do think they could be like a real dark horse to win a title next year even.
Okay.
They just got the #1 defensive line recruit in the country.
Oh, okay.
Out of Missouri, out of Lee Summit. So there's that. There they go. Mizzou gets a 5-star. Okay, let's play the game.
All right, let's do it.
That was just put on my radar. So I had to bring it up. Okay, Shane, you ready to go?
Let's do it.
You got music for me?
You want some music? Well, let me find some game music here. Well, I don't know. I mean, I get
I always want music.
Okay, let me find something here.
Bring it on, Shane.
Okay, what about this?
Perfect. Beautiful.
All right, guys, we'll start off easy. Okay, let's have a little warm-up word here.
Okay.
Can you tell me what GOAT means? GOAT. Ravi, I'll hold off on you. I want to start with Shane. Let's start easy.
No, it's the greatest of all time.
What do you think, Ravi?
Agree.
Okay, that is a term that was coined by the Gen Zers.
Okay.
But everybody kind of picked up on it because when you talk about LeBron, the GOAT conversation, Tom Brady, the GOAT conversation, like that's where that word kind of began. All right, you guys feel good about that one? Your head is up high.
I mean, I'd like to think us millennials coined GOAT before Gen Zers got to it. But,
all right.
But we're splitting hairs here. I feel good.
All
right, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
How about cap? What does cap mean?
Cap means lie.
What do you
like
think?
You're
Shane?
telling a falsehood.
Cap, as in CAP.
CAP.
I think you'd want to just cap it, like that's the height of it. You're putting a cap on it.
So you're like wrapping something up.
Yep, you're wrapping something up.
No, it means you're lying. That's what
nailed it.
So if you're talking to a high school kid,
they'll be like, no cap.
No cap.
Yeah.
Like no lie.
Yeah.
All right, another side note, TK wants me to give credit where credit's due. He was the first to text me that Mizzou was a dark horse. But it's not to say that people couldn't come to that conclusion after what we've been seeing.
Yeah, no, they had a great year this year, and obviously their recruiting classes.
So there you go. I'll toss some roses to you, my guy. All right.
Whatever.
You're done. Let's keep going.
Where's Mizzou in the team rankings? I'll look it up. You keep going. Yeah.
Drip.
Ooh, drip is like it's like your outfit. It's like your swagger.
What do you think, Shane?
I was gonna go with that. That's your swag. That's your. I mean, if you got drip, you're set for the day.
It's usually having to do with an outfit, though.
It's cool style and it's more of a clothing reference.
Yes.
So you guys are absolutely right. All right, Shane, we'll start with you. What does bet mean?
I mean, the standard. I mean, if you went with the, I mean, you'd be going over to the war horse to throw down some money. So I'm just gonna go with that because that's the easy layup right there. Did I miss it? I don't know.
Ravi, what does bet mean?
So bet is like, how do I put this into words? It's almost like prove it. It's like when somebody says, when somebody tells you something, you're like bet, like show me, like do it.
No, bet is actually yes.
Okay.
Bet means yes.
Well, that's not. Okay.
So if somebody's like, hey, Ravi, we're going to B-Dubs for lunch, or we're going to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill for lunch.
Yeah.
Oh, Ravi, we're having this meeting at the office today. You would say bet.
I would say cap. I don't go to meetings at the office.
Okay.
Everybody knows that about me.
All right. What if I were to say I'm weak?
I'd say you haven't been in the weight room. I don't know. I got nothing on
Shane?
that one.
You're emotional. You're having some inner feelings. You're.
Oh, wait, hold on. I think I got it. It means
weak.
you think something's really funny. You're like laughing so hard that you're weak.
That is correct.
Yes.
I'm weak is you are hysterically laughing.
I was like, hold on. I got to remember to my conversations with people that are younger than I am. Nailed it.
What if I were to say bussin'? Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, Shane,
bussin'.
you go first.
You're on the move. Your day is full.
You're hanging out with Will Compton.
It is not literally. We aren't taking these words for their literal meaning, Shane.
Bussin', I think I've got this.
Think outside the box. What does bussin' mean?
I'm not sure, but I think I've got this. I've only heard it in reference to like food in particular, but it's like it's really, really good. Like that is like either like top notch or delicious. Like, oh, that's bussin'.
Man, Ravi, you are on one today. Bussin' means you're talking about something delicious.
Let's go.
Like, yes, like that food is bussin'.
Yes.
Does that make sense, Shane?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. That's bussin'.
No way. It makes
So
sense
I
to
think
Shane.
a lot of this, I got to give credit to my wife here. She works, her assistant at where she's a pastry chef.
Okay.
Is like 22 or 23 years old. And so I think my wife picks up on a lot of lingo from her and brings it home. I think that's why I knew bussin'. Was because she started saying bussin' one day. I was like, what are you talking about?
Got it. Okay.
What do we got? What do we got next?
Next one on the list. What does sus mean?
Shane, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Sus is like it's suspect or suspicious. You're like, that doesn't quite pass the smell test. Like that's sus.
I was gonna go with something that's probably kind of stinky. It reeks. So
you're going like something that literally smells.
Yeah, it smells. It reeks. It's horrible. It's something you just don't want.
Like that would be an answer. Like if I were a teacher on an essay question, I'd give like participation credit
like
to.
partial credit.
Yeah, because I thought like Shane was like headed on the right track. Sus means you're suspect about something. Like you're if someone's doing something shady, you're gonna be like,
you kind of look at them.
That person's sus.
You kind of look at them with the side eye. You're like, that's sus.
So that's what that means. Yeah. But the way you were going about his answer and how he was deeply explaining it, I'd be like, yeah, I'll give you a C for that try.
A C for effort.
A passing grade.
Yeah, why not?
When I hear that Wingo is still asleep and hasn't made a decision yet, I kind of give him the side eye. I go, that's sus.
How about sheesh?
Sheesh.
Yeah, what is that? You say it, but what does it mean, Ravi?
Well, I mean, so sheesh has been around forever. I don't know if it still means the same thing, but the only thing I can think of is when it's kind of like an exclamation, like, oh, geez, like sheesh. Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with like that's the in thing to say like sheesh, like she's like good at what she's doing. You know,
No,
like,
no, sheesh.
Oh, it's not sheesh.
Like you say sheesh.
Like SESHEESH.
Yes. Oh, sheesh. I didn't know that. Okay, so then I'll go with the same thing you said there, Robbie.
You're going the same. What did you end up saying?
It's like an exclamation, like oh geez, like just oh sheesh.
And again, maybe partial credit. Sheesh is like you're hyping someone up.
Okay, Ken says that it's shady.
What's shady?
What? Sus?
Yeah, sus is like shady.
Sus? Yeah, sus is shady.
Yeah.
That's what I said, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
When I was explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those were the 8 that I gathered.
He says, can't forget about Riz. AR is a rizzard.
Hey, what does Riz mean?
Riz is like when you're, I think, it's like when you're trying to hit on somebody. It's like how much game you've got when you're trying to pick somebody up.
Nice.
Like,
wow, Ravi, you're really in tune with the kids.
You got the Riz.
Man, it's like your style, your charm.
And you say kids are a tough hang.
Your ability to attract.
Kids are a tough hang. I'm just on the internet too much.
A romantic partner.
Yeah, it's like your game. You're like spitting game. That's what we used to say. It was spitting game.
Heath, my man. My man. Okay, this one's kind of a weird one, and I'd be curious if you guys can pull this off.
All right, let's do it.
What does glow up mean?
Oh, I know what glow up is.
Really?
I think so.
Okay. Shane, you want to start?
So it's like a blow up. You like somebody getting mad, somebody getting angry, somebody just, somebody just going off the handle.
Okay, Ravi?
No, glow up is like when you have, it's almost like a makeover kind of, but it's sort of like a more long-term thing where it's like, hey, like this was me when I was like 13. Now I'm 23. Look at my glow up. Look how much better I look now.
Oh, so you're putting the glow on. You're putting the sparkles on. You're putting
it's your glow up.
Man, this dude is on fire.
Listen.
Glow up. I'm going to read the exact definition that it says here. Think of this term as a way of describing how someone improved from where they used to be.
See?
Unbelievable.
Nailed it.
That is unreal.
Jeez.
What about Stan?
So Stan is like when you're
if you pull this out of your cap.
No cap.
No cap.
No, Stan is like when you are a fan of something. Like if you're a Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, you're a fan of their relationship, then you stan for T Swift and Kelce.
Shane?
When you stand, you're kind of standing in for somebody.
Yep, that's not it. It is what Ravi said. You're supporting something, or someone.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're standing in. You're standing up. You're standing in.
Shane,
that's exactly what I. That's
Shane, I have one just for you.
That's what I said. Were you not listening?
Now you said it all, Shane.
Shane,
sheesh.
Shane, you're capping. All right, this one's for Shane only.
Okay,
Shane, what does understood the assignment mean? What does that mean?
Exactly what it means. You understood what you were told to do. You understood what you needed to do, what you needed to get done. You got it done.
Way to go, Shane. All right, you're there. You're kind of there. All right, what about T?
Ooh, I know the T.
Shane, what about T?
Do you want to try first?
You tee it up.
TEA. What is TEA?
Like the drink. Like the stuff Ted Lasso hates.
Believe.
So that's probably the new purple drink.
It's the new purple drink.
Is that what they call it?
Do you
they call it tea?
You know what that is?
Do you only know what purple drink is because of Jamarcus Russell?
Yes. Is that what they call? Is that what they call the new drink these days?
No.
They don't call it tea. I'm going to get my tea on.
Nope. Nope. Tea is
like
Robbie?
Gossip. It's like the scoop.
Yeah, tea is like
the hot
like
goss.
You're spilling the tea. You're spilling gossip.
It's the hot goss. It's rumors.
You feel like you're learning something today?
I feel like I'm learning something. I feel like kids are probably not so much of a tough hang after this.
Shane, you are a big yikes. What does that mean?
Yikes is like cringe, right? It's like you're like something that's like, I don't know. That's cringe.
Yeah, it's a way of saying something is bad.
Yeah.
Big yikes.
Big yikes.
That's how I feel like.
Well, that's
Shane,
not nice.
Shane is going with this today.
Is it like purple drink? That killed me.
Golly.
Do we have any more?
Well, I do, but I have to like read what it means on words I don't know to make sure that I'm not saying anything derogatory.
Yeah, to make sure it's like internet or like radio appropriate and not going to get you canceled.
I think this one's okay. What does dank mean?
Ooh, dank just means like cool, doesn't it?
I would say it's just the opposite. That's dank. I mean, you don't want any of that. You want to stay away from dank. I mean, that's like the low end of whatever it is that you're on.
So it says it doesn't have a typical definition.
Fair.
But it's typically used in meme culture to refer to a hard-hitting meme.
Yeah, like that's a dank meme.
Never heard that one.
I've heard that one, not in that context, and not in a context that I'm willing to share.
Well, there's another one on here that I'm skipping over because I know the context of it, and I'm not going to share it.
All right, let's do one more.
One more. Oh
yeah,
man.
Let's find your top one.
Okay, here. Here I have a teacher cheat sheet here.
Okay, let's do it. What do we have? I'm excited. I feel like I'm crushing this game.
You are.
I'm hip with what the youths are saying, Andrew.
I want to get one to like.
You trying to stump me?
Yeah.
Oh.
I gotta find a way to stump you.
Okay, I don't know why I like that, but all right.
Okay, how about catch a fade or catch these hands?
So like catch a fade or catch these hands means like you're gonna get beat up. Like you're trying to catch these hands. It's like when you say something kind of like out of pocket, and you're like, oh, you better be careful. You're gonna catch these hands.
I would say no. You're wrong on that.
Yeah, Shane, you tell him.
Catch a fade, you're probably going to give him a high five. It's like a little bit of a dab right there.
It was more Ravi's definition. It's to get punched or knocked out.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
It's like catching these hands.
See, like this is crazy, right? Did you study?
No, I did not study.
Man,
I think I'm just a lot cooler than people realize.
This one is and hear me out, people.
All right,
it's S.H. Liddy. Okay, so Schlitty. Okay, I emphasize the L there. Okay, what does that mean?
So I don't know this one. Contextually and how it sounds, I'm gonna assume it means to get intoxicated.
Okay, Shane.
Repeat it again.
No, don't repeat it again.
S.H. Liddy.
Yeah. I'd say it all as one word, but don't actually say it because it just sounds too close.
Okay, I will go with the intox. You know, you have too much tea and you're a little bit intoxicated.
No, it's not tea. That's not,
it's not purple drink either.
Maybe purple drink would get you S.H. Liddy, but
no, not in this definition.
Okay, fair.
It means you're having a good time.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I guess if you're intoxicated, you're having a good time.
Maybe, sometimes. Depends. All right. That is our Dingman's game, as the kids say, or something kids like these days.
S.H. Liddy.
Was S.H. Liddy.
I'm going to be honest with you.
That's the name of the podcast today. S.H. Liddy.
I freaking crushed that game. I might be the best Gen Z slanger of all time. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to get my purple drink on.
We are mostly just making fun of Shane. That's what Thomas said on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, pretty much. I knew Shane probably would struggle with this game, which is why it's entertaining.
Yeah,
I was actually completely and utterly shocked that Ravi took this home with like a 94% average.
Listen, people don't realize how cool I am.
You have a higher average than Steve Wiltfong does.
So since we're at a bar right now, you're saying there's no tea over there on the other side at all?
Nope.
No, there is no tea.
There's nothing over there that the kids.
They might have iced tea.
There's nothing over there that the kids would call tea.
No, because
besides iced tea.
Yeah, actually, there probably is. I'm sure the staff or restaurateurs are gossiping.
Yeah, they got some rumors and stuff, but tea is not like a physical drink, Shane.
Do we have purple drink here?
Stop it. Turn the mic off, Shane. Get out of here. All right, we're going to continue our signing day coverage here. We just want to take a little break. Listen, just take a little minute here.
This is what, like when you show up to see Caleb Benning, Carter Nelson sign their letters to play, guess what? All of the students that show up are like, man, he's not capping.
I will say, I think part of my fluence in Gen Z or fluency.
You don't like kids. How do you know these things?
So I think a lot of those were first starting when I was still coaching college basketball. So I was coaching college basketball until like 3 years ago still. So some of those were like on the front edge of what was happening there. So I kind of got a little bit of an advantage from being around the college kids. But as we continue our signing day coverage, and we have we had a good time playing the game. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dingmans, for presenting our silly game of the day. We're going to talk to Andy Kendeigh from KETV. I think he was just I know KETV was present at Bellevue West for their signing day. I don't know if Andy was there or if he was bebopping around trying to cover some of the other signing days around the area, but we will talk to Andy Kendeigh here in just a few minutes. We will keep you up to date.
We've moved him to 9:30, by the way.
Andy?
Yeah, he's they've
so we're shifting.
Terrific.
And we might be moving somebody else later in the day too, or later.
Wait a second here.
We don't have room. We don't have any time left, Shane.
we have BC at 9.
Right.
We have Kendeigh now at 9:30 and AB at 9:45.
Yeah,
we can't move anywhere.
That's it.
I'm confirming the time with AB right now. So.
Okay, cool. Terrific.
Okay.
Appreciate producing the show live while we're on the air. All right, so we are going to talk to Andy Kendeigh next. We'll continue to talk about National Signing Day. I want to kind of put into context the level of excitement here for Nebraska. If you're listening on YouTube or anything like that, you can put it in the comments. If you're listening over the air on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, you can give us a call at 888-638-4876 on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. This, specifically with Raiola, but this class in general, is the most excited you've been for Husker football since fill in the blank. Whoa. I've got 3 that I think are reasonable answers. And I'm mostly thinking 21st century, but if you haven't been this excited since 97, 95, whatever, you let me know. But this is the most excited you've been for Nebraska football since. I've got 3 answers that I feel really good about. I'm interested in what you have to say. Hop in the YouTube comments. Hop on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. Let me know what you put in after that blank. I'm going to allow Andrew to think about it over the break here.
Well, what's funny about this is mine's going to be so recent.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That maybe that could be looked at as like a unique way to approach this.
I think so.
Because you're not going to get anything deeper than 4 years. Like no chance.
No, that's fair. But I think it's good to have different perspectives. So we'll kind of see.
Okay.
We'll kind of see
fair.
where you're sitting from. We'll let Shane answer if he stops being weird over there about moving my guests around without telling me. And
then if we can, at some point in the show, I want to revisit a thought that Heath had in the 7 o'clock hour.
Absolutely. And since apparently all of our guests are moved to the 9 o'clock hour, we can probably get to that at some point before the end of the hour. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, and ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We've got your signing day coverage here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, along with Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can be a part of the show. You can call in on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. I asked the question before the break. This is the most excited you've been for Nebraska football since what? And I asked you to fill in the blank. I know Andrew was thinking about it over the
I didn't
break.
have to think too hard.
Didn't have to think
I didn't have
hard.
to date myself.
Ken didn't mind dating himself. He said 1992. So Ken's talking about the freshman year of Tommy Frazier.
Was he a good player?
He was pretty solid. I will take Tommy Frazier. That'll work. If Dylan Raiola has the same career trajectory as Tommy Frazier, I think the state might explode in a good way. That was Ken's answer. TK says he's on an infinite loop of each year being the most excited he's ever been, only to be disappointed. So we appreciate the honesty and self-awareness there, TK. Continue to chime in with yours either on YouTube, Twitter, I'm at R.A. Lulla, or
At Andrew Rogers CC.
There we go. I can never remember. At
It's
Andrew
not hard.
Rogers CC. I know.
I may have to change the CC though.
You may. You may. You need like 20 stats or you need 20 CCs of Andrew Rogers stat.
Yeah, exactly.
The most excited you've been for Nebraska football since. I came up with 3. Heath says Sioux 09 was the most recent excitement for football.
Good one.
And yours is skewed more recent. Obviously, you're from Missouri. You're a transplant here. You've really embedded yourself here, but your Rolodex of Nebraska football in terms of being here is a little bit shorter. So I'm interested to see from your standpoint what have been the exciting moments in recent history without the burden and baggage of having it been weighed down by our past.
So I'll start with the most recent thing, and that was the hiring of Coach Rule.
Yeah, absolutely. Big one.
So that for me is number 1 on this list as the most recent, the most recent example of excitement for me. I remember this was, last summer, and 2 summers ago when they were really starting to talk a little bit more and more about like who could be the next coach. Because this was when Scott Frost was kind of teeter-tottering with he could stay the coach, he could get fired. And so options were coming out. And then as August started to roll, September started to roll, October, you started seeing, okay, Scott Frost is not going to be there.
So
Joseph
he got
steps up as the interim.
Fired that September.
Right.
Yeah.
It was against it was the week before Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was right after Georgia Southern.
And that's when also Coach Rule's name came
Starts
on the
popping
map.
up. Yeah. Because
And
he was in a little hot water at Carolina. Hadn't been fired yet, but
once he got fired, I had said, this is him. He's the guy. He's the option for this university. He is the person Nebraska needs to bring in to really change the face of the program. And I sat with that answer.
Yeah.
Even when Lane Kiffin, Dave Aranda, and
Lance
others,
Leipold at some point was named. Luke Fickell's name got out there.
I think was circling too at the time. All of these names were options for Nebraska to reach out to. I still rested on Coach Rule's the guy. Why? Because of Temple, because of Baylor, because he made his way to the NFL and realized it wasn't for him.
Don't forget about Urban Meyer was in the
Urban Meyer was in the mix. Urban Meyer was actually the person I thought first.
Yeah. Until Rule got fired.
Yeah. Well, because this was during the season.
Yeah. Right.
And I thought Urban Meyer, I said, if you want a coach that wins, it's Urban Meyer. Now, he didn't really fit the culture of Nebraska. Yeah. So that's why I kind of veered off that path. But Coach Rule for me was the most exciting addition because once I saw him step foot on campus and the impression that he made in his opening press conference, I knew that he was going to make it work. And even though season 1 didn't go as planned, think about all the highs that you had in season 1 versus the lows. There were more highs and have been even bigger highs by getting Dylan Raiola to commit in offseason number 2 for Coach Rule. The sky is the limit for him.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting answer because if not for one of the items on my list, I think last year with Coach Rule would have been way higher on everybody else's list as well. A lot of us came in, a lot of people from Nebraska fans, whatever, came into the Coach Rule hire with the baggage of the Scott Frost hire, right? Because Scott Frost was supposed to be the savior. He was supposed to be that guy. And so one of the items on my list was not year 1, which was super exciting, but year 2 under Scott Frost, where going into year 2, not once year 2 started, but going into year 2, you had Nebraska won 4 of their last 6 games, almost beat Ohio State down the stretch in year 1. They had Adrian Martinez, who was, I believe, 3rd in Heisman odds going into that season. 3rd, ahead of guys like Jalen Hurts, by the way, who was awesome that year at Oklahoma. You had Nebraska had all of these expectations. You were coming off of a really great true freshman season from Mo Washington, who his career ended up ending because of legal issues back in California, right? This was the year 2, before year 2 of Scott Frost was it's hard to describe the hype now that it's gone and passed, and we saw how the Frost thing ended up playing out. but the way year one ended and the way people looked at guys like Adrian Martinez, and at that point, we don't know that Scott Frost isn't going to get it done yet, and so you assume it's going to get done the way the coaches were talking about the team. That, to me, is so high on the list because at that moment, even though they'd been 4-8 the year before, it felt like, oh, this is about to happen. This is about to pop. And that is, in recent memory, I think the most excited people have been. What's number 2?
Number 2 on my list, and this goes back just a little, a day or two before Coach Rule got his coach contract. The win over Iowa.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one.
And the reason I think that was huge for this program is Nebraska was in desperate need of something to believe in, and desperate need of something just going well.
Yeah.
Like they experienced so much turmoil in Scott Frost's final year. You had Mickey Joseph that, stepped in and did a nice job, but still was working with a team that was kind of just a bunch of misfits on the field.
Yeah.
You had an amazing wide receiver in Trey Palmer. You had a really nice quarterback in Casey Thompson, but Casey was like going through his own injury struggles that season because he was just taking a beating. And so that sort of win, though, really set up that team going into the following year, which ended up being Coach Rule's first year. And I remember when Coach Rule first got here, he thought a lot like me in the sense of it wasn't going to be a slow burn in year one because they kind of had that after Scott Frost got fired. Like that was the so-called slow burn. And then when they put out the flame against Iowa, it was like, no, this team has confidence again. This team has a true belief structure. And so that win was so big that, Iowa, what did Iowa end up that year?
Last year, 8-4, 8-5.
And Iowa would have gone to the Big Ten title game if not for that loss, correct?
I believe so, yes. They needed it.
And that win for Nebraska showed the team that they could beat anybody on any given night.
Yep.
Even when your team is so far down in the dumps that you feel like you can't pull yourself out, that team did it. That team won the Heroes Trophy, and that team started instant progress for when Coach Rule got here. So that's why I date myself just 2 more days because I think that win was so crucial for the confidence moving forward.
So the next one for me, and I'm going back in chronological order basically, and TK brought this one up as well, was 2010 Taylor Martinez with that, especially like that, the first few games of the season. I think it was Kansas State on a Thursday night where this guy is just running roughshod over a pretty good Kansas State team on national television. And everybody's just like, what the heck is going on? This guy's just busting off 70-yard runs. And you're like, is this guy going to win the Heisman? He was a Heisman hopeful after that game. And everybody's just looking around like, what's happening right now? It was an incredibly fun moment. It didn't last very long, but an incredibly fun moment to be a Husker fan. We can hit our number 3s right when we come back from the break. We'll wrap up our number 2 as well. We will continue our signing day coverage here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. We are covering the National Signing Day for Nebraska, and we've had some recruits join us over the phone on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. We will have Brian Christopherson, Andy Kendeigh, and Anna Bellinghausen join us on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, all in the 9 o'clock hour. But I want to tell you about Warhorse Sportsbook because it's the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. You can do it at the casino, at the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln, or at Horseman's Park here in Omaha at 6303 Q Street. You can place bets on nearly every major sporting event. You can place straight bets, parlays, props, live in-game bets, which are my personal favorite, or you can also build your bets on the Warhorse Casino app and then go in person, scan the QR code, and place your bets either at the casino in Lincoln or at Horseman's Park in Omaha. warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or the Warhorse Casino app for a full list of details and house rules. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. All right, wanted to wrap up our most excited for Nebraska for considering this signing period, considering Dylan Raiola, and we gave our first two. Yours was hiring Coach Rule, beating Iowa last year. Mine was year 2 of Frost and 2010 Taylor Martinez as a redshirt freshman when he was lighting the world on fire. What is your third and final entry into this most excited since?
So I know everybody was dating themselves back to Sue in 2009, and this is where I'm actually going to date myself.
Okay.
But now I didn't watch it happen live, but I have watched it since because I absolutely freaking love what position on the field, Ravi?
Kickers.
I love kickers.
Loves kickers.
How about Alex Henry's 57-yard field goal?
Against Colorado?
How about that kick? And the celebration that ensued after the kick. Do you know how hard it is to kick a 57-yard field goal?
Pretty hard.
It's not easy.
In the cold?
And Alex Henry did it.
He did.
And then Alex Henry went on to be a 4th-round pick to the Eagles. He had a good NFL career. I'm telling you, man, the kicker position, I absolutely love it. And look, I know Tristan Alvano had his freshman woes this season.
A little bit, yeah.
But he's really gonna figure it out. Like, don't be alarmed by what you saw out of Tristan Alvano this year. The way he prepares, the way that he operates in a game, he'll be unfazed going into year 2. Tristan Alvano is a dude, and I really believe you're going to see him turn the page into his sophomore season. But Alex Henry is the third moment for me.
So, it's funny. The third moment for me actually goes to a play directly after that Alex Henry kick, which is Ndamukong Suh in 2009, where people kind of forget. I'm almost positive, unless I'm conflating two games, I don't think I am. I'm almost positive after that Alex Henry kick that gave Nebraska the lead, appeared to be the game winner. Colorado had some time. They were trying to come back and take the lead again, and the coach's son, Cody Hawkins, threw an interception to Suh. Suh then ragdolled him on the way to the end zone as Cody Hawkins was trying to tackle him. Watching Ndamukong Suh in 2009,
he was really awesome.
Was one of the more satisfying football fan experiences of my life because you could count on it. That's one of the things that I don't think give enough credit to greatness is how much you can count on it. You can count on the consistency of they're going to perform every single time out. And Ndamukong Suh was that guy. You knew he was going to make the big play. You knew he was going to just throw offensive linemen back into their quarterback. You knew he was going to be that dude, and he delivered every single game. And watching him, honestly, that Texas game where he was the best player on the field against a team that was going to go play for a national title, against a team that had Colt McCoy on it. He was the best player on the field, and it wasn't even close. Watching Ndamukong Suh in 2009 was one of the more exciting times in recent history to be a Husker fan. Heath brought up an interesting point about how we all kind of skip over year 1 with Scott Frost and when he got hired. I agree that when he got hired, there was a ton of hype. The reason I went with year 2 was because after the way year 1 ended and the way we saw that Adrian Martinez looked like he was going to be a super dude, and he ended up having a nice career, right? But I think after that freshman year, we all expected more. The hype going into year 2, I think, was even higher. I didn't want to put 2 Frost entries on the list, so I went with the one that I thought was even greater. But it's a fair point from Heath that the hype of Frost being hired was enormous as well. Headley says, Ravi, hear me out. What if we never lose another football game in our lifetimes? That would be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not anticipating that. I'm not going to.
Am I confused, or did I read that same comment yesterday?
Probably. It's been on my Twitter a couple times as well. Heath says people forget that having Jared Crick on that line helped Suh do his thing. It certainly did. Jared Crick was a really nice player in his own right. Ended up being, I believe, a 4th-round pick to the Houston Texans. Probably would have been higher, but I believe he tore his tricep, either his tricep or his pec as a senior. And so that messed up his draft stock a little bit. But Jared Crick was a really good player in his own right.
So in a nutshell, the last 15 years, like the 5 best things has been Sue 09, Taylor Martinez 10, the hiring of Scott Frost, the hiring of Coach Rule, the Iowa win, and then the last week with Raiola.
Well, yeah, you missed Alex Henry's kick, Shane.
Yeah,
come on,
don't
man.
be disrespectful.
So there's like the 7 best things in the last 15 years.
Don't be disrespectful. Crick was a 4th round pick. I just checking for my own edification there. But but that kind of is the point of what I want to talk about there, Shane, is I've said this a couple times. I genuinely think Dylan Raiola signing with Nebraska is the biggest win of the 21st century for Nebraska.
Easily. Well, what did I say to you in the break? I'm reading on ESPN's page for the National Signing Days things to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at you and I said, how in the world, after the season Nebraska had and where they have been as a program,
how'd they pull this off?
Did they land the person they needed most in the position that cost them the most in 2023?
Yeah.
How did they do that? Like, as much as like we have the answer in front of us, Coach Rule kept the relationship. It helps that, there's a previous connection to Nebraska. But like, really, let's think about like, how did that actually happen? Like, that's why it's so exciting, because you know the answer, yet you still question how they were able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's and not just the guy that they got at the position they got. Nebraska has just never gotten this guy before. Not in the recruiting era, right? You go back to Tommy Frazier, he was probably of this caliber when he was recruited. Eric Crouch was probably close, although with the offense he was coming out of, it was probably more of a system fit, but he was a parade All-American, so he was a highly touted guy. But you're literally talking about the second best prospect in the country at any position, according to 24/7. This is one of those dudes. And Nebraska it's been 2006 since Nebraska's gotten anybody in this neighborhood, and that's Marlon Lucky at running back. This is an unprecedented get for Nebraska. And you can talk about being a developmental program, and I believe in that. You can talk about, wanting to build guys up and take a couple years to figure things out, and I'm good with that as well. But at the end of the day, when you get one of these guys at the quarterback position, it allows all of that to work, right? It allows all of that to not just to go from, hey, we can turn a bunch of these 3-stars into a nice 8-9 win team. It elevates you to, these might be real dudes. This might be a real team. Like, being in the top 12 at some point over Dylan Raiola's career is not crazy. 12 is doable. Like 4, I get a little bit antsy at 4. 12 feels incredibly doable.
Well, let's just take Mizzou, for example. I've talked about him a lot today, but when Brady Cook comes in, Brady Cook is what, a sophomore now, I believe?
I think so.
Luther Burden, true freshman. Okay, so you have a 5-star wideout on the outside. Brady Cook is an in-state quarterback as well, but a pretty highly rated recruit. And then some other nice pieces defensively, mixed in with a pretty solid offensive line, a good walk-on running back that really has made a name for himself this season. Was actually he probably finished around the same spot in the Heisman voting that Ndamukong Suh did when he was an impact player at Nebraska.
He finished 4th in 09.
Well, then Corey was behind that. Corey was probably 7 or 8 this year. So Suh was up there, but that's beside the point. Think about what Nebraska has in front of them going into next year now. Yes, they don't have that Luther Burden on the outside. They don't have that of that caliber, but they do have a guy that can get behind defenders in Jalen Lloyd. They do have a 4-star in Malachi Coleman. They still have the potential to go to the portal and get a big name out of the portal to be a veteran presence there. Mike Schaefer wants a running back. We heard him say that yesterday. They still have the option to go to the portal and get that running back and build a team similar to Mizzou. Mizzou ended what this year? 9.
Yep.
Nebraska can get there with Dylan Raiola.
I'm looking at you, Evan Stewart from Texas A&M. Come on down, buddy.
Price is right.
We've got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. And for hour number 3, we're on KFOR in Lincoln. we're brought to you by the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Remember, using your seatbelt saves lives and prevents injuries, but only if it is worn properly. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
Everything, but that's all right.
Good morning,
BC. Speaking of everything, I think we're right on top of this. Just in the last few minutes, it sounds like Larry Tarver, former Maryland commit, has officially flipped to Nebraska.
Yeah, kind of an expected flip, but we still are able to label it a flip, I think, by definition, and that's always fun on signing day to call those signing day flips. So, yeah, he had visited Nebraska in the fall, and it sounded kind of encouraging, and in the last week or so, it really picked up steam that there was a good chance Nebraska was going to get him. But, they continue to bulk up with some athletes and back end guys in that defense. I think Evan Cooper's really sort of he's up the competition in that room with some of these late additions we're going to see.
Yeah, BC, it seems like they've added about 1 million different guys in that defensive backfield over the last class or so. So the competition is going to be high for sure. What do you know about Larry Tarver just as a prospect? He's about a 5'11" corner out of Miami, Florida, as I mentioned previously, committed to Maryland.
Yeah, well, he's a great, these are all good athletes, but he's a great athlete down in that talent-rich area, as you mentioned, in Miami, where there's, even the guys who aren't the first people you notice at the camp because maybe their measurables aren't 6'2" or 6'3" at that corner spot or whatever, they're still freaks. And he's got a lot of talent. It should tell people something that Maryland was in on him because, whatever your thoughts are on Maryland's program, they've built it up nicely under Loxley, and they get a lot of dudes, who are really good at skill spots and in the defensive backfield. So the fact that was the other candidate here tells you something. Nice addition to just add to the competition, and I think Bly Hill is too, the portal corner they got out of St. Francis, PA. FCS school, so he still has 3 years to play, so it's not like he's just a one and done or anything like that. And as you think about Nebraska's secondary next year, we've talked about it before. We love the safety spots with Buford and hopefully a healthy Deshaun Singleton and Gifford back at the Rover, but you got to replace Quentin Newsome. Hartzog had his ups and downs, if we're honest, and Tommy Hill was coming on late. But you're hoping you can find a two deep at that cornerback spot that you can really trust and can shut some people down, and so they've definitely attacked it.
Man, you have my brain going here, BC. I feel like 3 questions wrapped into one, but I'm gonna start short or start small here. The first one being on that Bly Hill edition. I've seen a little bit of his film. I don't know how much you've watched, but it seems like he could work on his first step a little bit, but he does have some good length, some good speed. And then a follow-up to that, as you look at that defensive back position, that group, we know that Caleb Benning signed over to Nebraska this morning as well. How quickly do you see a guy like Caleb finding his way onto the field? So if you could start with Hill, if you know anything about him, if not, totally fine. It's pretty new. It's pretty fresh, but we've seen Caleb play for the last 4 seasons and know what he can offer.
Well, Hill's dad, Leroy Hill, played in the NFL for the Seahawks and spent I think it was like 8 years in the league. So he's got really good genes. As you mentioned, he's got length. He's 6'3". There's not a ton of film on him, even huddle highlights, because he was kind of an under the radar guy out of Baltimore originally, but it probably tells you something that Nebraska handpicked him the way they did, and Evan Cooper really specializes in that. So you sort of have to trust his evaluation on it, and also the genes and all that. It seems like a good fit. We'll see. As far as Caleb, Caleb is just. Bo Pelini and coaches like to say he's a football player. They always say that, and you're like, yeah, I got that. But we know what that means. Caleb's just one of those guys you could roll it out and play in the parking lot on a Tuesday, and he'd perform and be one of the best guys. He just has a knack for making plays. So I never discount what he can get done and how quickly he can get it done. And obviously, knowing his dad and just the background he has of knowing the game, he's going to be a quick study, so you can't count him out. And I always think the secondary is a position where sometimes guys can emerge pretty fast as a freshman. Like Dwight Boodle, I think would have had a say more in things if he hadn't been injured this year. He was a guy they really liked, and he came on fast. So he's an example of how quickly it can sometimes come for a guy in the secondary.
BC, another, quote unquote flip that has happened this morning is Vincent Shavers. He had decommitted from Miami a couple days ago, was on campus with Raiola this past weekend. How big of a pickup is Vincent Shavers for Nebraska?
I love Shavers as a prospect. He's a guy, really great closeout speed. Just one of those Miami athletes again. This staff hit the Miami, Florida area hard in December. They were down there making sure they had their commitments sewn up with guys like Ja'Cory Barney and all that. But they were also looking, I think, knocking on the doors of some other guys. And Shavers is one of them that they've been interested in. They got him here for a weekend visit. He had been committed to Miami up until like the end of last week. Mm-hmm. I think it was just sort of a numbers game with Miami as to why that they parted ways. And we're seeing that at a lot of schools nowadays where they build up their class. I think we're seeing it in Nebraska a little bit, and then some guys just have to fall off at the end. But I don't think he's a lesser player by any means. And he comes in at a linebacker spot where Nebraska is going to need to bulk it up a bit. You're kind of entering that era post Henrich and Reimer where you've got to find some guys. It's great that John Bullock's coming back for sure, mm-hmm. but some young players are going to need to kind of get in the mix. And I think that's probably enticing the Shavers. I know they love the visit. I've talked a little with his dad and just how, football centric this place is, but also there had to be appeal like, hey, the door is open for you to come and try to, work your way on the 2D pretty fast here. And that could be pretty appealing, especially if you're a defender. He's like, I could maybe do that. And, oh yeah, they were really good last year on that side of the ball. That's an exciting defense to play in. So I think Tony White's got a lot to sell right now.
BC, we had this question pop up on the show earlier, and unfortunately haven't gotten to it just yet. But I think, talking about it with you will be the perfect time. This question coming over from Heath in our 7 o'clock hour. We spoke a lot with Caleb and Carter Nelson before we really got into more signing day talk and asking them about their relationships with this coaching staff, and both of them brought up how Coach Rule just was really a man of his word. And then Keith asked this question on the heels of Dylan Raiola saying in an interview that the thing he loves most about Coach Rule is he connects with his players. Do you think that's more telling of Coach Rule or more telling of the universities that passed on Dylan Raiola?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know on what else happened outside of our bubble. I do know, like with Georgia and Ryle and all that stuff, I don't know for sure. So I can't speak. I'd just be talking out of turn. I do know that persistence matters, and making someone feel wanted is going to win you guys like Raiola on days like today. It's also going to win you guys in this day and age a couple years down the road sometimes. Like, this is an era in college football where there's some guys who are signing elsewhere today, but if Rule and this staff is as good at relationship building as I think they are, you never know what might come around if they need to plug in a guy from the portal here or there a year or two from now, because they already had a relationship from recruiting him in this cycle. And so all that stuff matters. And all I know with Dylan Raiola is that a year ago at this time, I thought Nebraska was dead in the water with him. And I thought the relationship had flown with the previous staff. I thought they'd butchered it. And it was Rule and his staff that laid a foundation in that first month they were here, and they had all their assistant coaches go and visit them in January. No other staff had done that. Obviously, his uncle's a coach, so that means something. We can't play naive about it. But I think that first month on the job, we'd be remiss to not go back and say that Rule and his staff sort of recalibrated the Raiola situation with Nebraska that gave them a chance in this final month to have happen what happened.
Well, BC, to be fair, we're talking with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. That wasn't just your perception of the situation, right? Like, the previous staff did butcher that relationship. Like, that's not really a secret at this point, right? Like, that's the actual position they were in.
Well, yeah, I don't think it went well at the top with the head man, the last head man and the recruitment of them. But what's done is done, and there was time to get that one off the ground again, and this new staff did a good job with it. So yeah, I think Rule definitely. Everybody's talked about the last month with Raiola, and for fair reason. There's probably a book to be written there if you knew everything. But the first month of it was with Rule joining the Husker staff, and the way they got after that recruitment, I think is just as pivotal in how this turned out.
BC, speaking of Dylan Raiola and how things might turn out, how much do you think his impact could have on the 2025 class? I know he committed probably a little too late to have a huge impact on this year's class, but as you look forward, do you expect Nebraska to get a bump from the presence of Dylan Raiola in next year's class?
I think they will if he's part of it, maybe the starter plays a lot in 24 and it's just really looking good. Like, okay, they got their QB at Nebraska. Look how that offense is starting to hum a little bit. He throws the ball downfield. You might get some skill guys who say, I'll jump on board with that. This guy's got a few more years there. Let's ride. And no doubt that could have an impact. Now, we got to see how it plays out, over the spring and fall with Dylan, because a year from now is a long time. I mean, if somehow something happens and someone else is starting or, wins the competition or whatever, I know that it seems like it's not going to happen to people right now, but I kind of want to wait to see how it plays out. Then maybe it's not going to mean as much with next year's class as far as the Dylan Raiola factor. So definitely something to keep in mind, though. And while I'm on the air, I want to bring up Danny Kaelin, because I was over at Bellevue West, and I just a great kid, and I appreciate on a day like this, that he's having his moment too, and he signed the papers and is not backing down from a challenge. And I was talking to a couple of his teammates, Isaiah McMorris and Davon Hall played with him, and they're like, that's just how he is. I mean, he's the kind of guy who lives for that fight, and he loves to compete and loves football, and so he's like, let's go. And so I like his mindset too as he goes into the competition, and he's enrolling early. So you never know how it's going to go, but obviously the Dylan Raiola thing has captured the imagination of some people, and nationally too. I've never seen nationwide Nebraska recruiting have a player focused on like we're seeing with Dylan Raiola.
Well, BC, you mentioned that mindset. I brought it up earlier on in the show of how, like, realistically, I think how DK should be thinking is, I'm going to develop over these next 2-3 years. Yes, I'm going to compete, but my focus should be on development. Do you think that it should be his mindset too, or do you have a different way of thinking when it comes to Danny Kaelin at Nebraska?
I think you just go into it with the thought of, like, I love to always see how I stack up against the best guy. They say this is the best guy. Any competitor is probably thinking to himself deep down, I'd like to prove I'm the best guy. How long that's going to take, or if that takes a fall or 2 years or 3 years, I want to prove that. And, it's not always settled by recruiting rankings. Like sometimes guys are rated really high and someone else ends up being a better player at the next level. So that's always possible, and you got to leave that door open. But if I'm Daniel Kaelin, yeah, I'm just going in there like, I want to be around the best. This guy is supposedly the best at his position, as they say. He's been around Dylan Raiola a lot. I mean, he's been around him at Elite 11 camps, and he was here at some Husker camps and stuff like that. So he's seen him. So that's not going to be new. And Daniel knows Chubba and Heinrich from his time, on campus pretty well, I think. So I think, and the good thing for Kaelin is he's got such a great relationship with so many guys in this class. He's going to feel, like he's got some family around him when he gets down there, for how he's connected with guys. So I know where everybody thinks it's going to go and how it kind of has this map laid out. Okay, a few years of Raiola, a couple of years of Kaelin. If you're a competitor, you probably view it a little bit differently, and I think we understand that too.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. All right, we talked about Larry Tarver and his flip. We talked about Vincent Shavers and his flip. Guy that it wouldn't be a flip, but that you also is kind of projected to be in this class is Amari Sanders. Do you still feel good about Amari ending up with Nebraska today?
From what I know, yeah. He's been a popular crystal ball pick for Nebraska for a while. I think that one is going to go Nebraska's way. We'll see for sure. I think it's at 11 when that one goes down. But again, he's another DB. So, I mean, think about if that happens. You got him, you got Tarver, you got Bly Hill. I mean, those are 3 DB adds today to the class to go with, obviously, Caleb, and I'm leaving people out. But they got a good class of guys in the secondary, and that's why I think Evan Cooper, he has his fingerprints over every Husker class because he's so good at analyzing talent, and I think a lot of the other coaches look his way for that. But just look at his specific room, pretty nice job. And it looks even a lot different by tonight than it did a week ago. So everybody who's in that room right now, there's going to be some new guys that are going to be hungry to try to take spots. And that's what you want to do. You want to just keep pushing people.
BC, I saw this update just about an hour ago, and we were talking a little bit about Ryan Wingo and how he hasn't signed yet. And an update from Chad Simmons on Twitter says schools like Missouri and Nebraska are working late to see if they can flip Wingo from Texas. Mizzou, being as they are the state school, probably has a better edge than Nebraska. But are you hearing anything on the Ryan Wingo front in connection to Nebraska?
I know Schaefer posted something on our board, and he'd been attacking this while I was up here at Bellevue West. And I think the belief is it's going to be difficult. So I think it's kind of a long shot, but it's not over till it's over. And then you asked about the Raiola effect. I mean, if there was one guy who, if Raiola had been committed to Nebraska since, say, May, where maybe you wonder if it would have been different, and I guess it still could be, it would be Wingo. He visited on that trip with all those big name guys, including Raiola in April or whatever it was. And we always looked at that weekend and said, is this going to be the weekend we always talk about? It didn't end up necessarily being that way, but I guess if Wingo somehow flipped, which I'm not saying, I think it's a long shot, but if that somehow happened, maybe we'll have to revisit that weekend and what it meant and the connection he had with Raiola and all that stuff. But I know there were people who the last few days have been asking, is there anybody who could flip dramatically on the last day? and he was the one name that sort of just floats out there. So until he signs with somebody, you keep your eye on it, and that's what we're going to do.
BC, we've got about 3 minutes left here with you. Who out of the guys we haven't talked about? So we talked about some of the flips in Tarver and Shavers. We've talked a lot about Dylan Raiola, talked about Danny Kaelin. Outside of those guys that we've talked about, who is somebody in this class that you're really, really excited about?
I'm pretty pumped up about Peters on the O-line. I think he's going to be a pretty good player. I think Braylon Prude, the linebacker out of Texas, is an under the radar guy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably doesn't get enough buzz. I think Ja'Cory Barney, who's going to enroll early, wide receiver out of Miami. Some would say he's not underrated, but I don't think he gets talked about as much as other guys. He's got to bulk up a little bit, but I talked to him last week. He's come into his ideas. He's going to play in 24. That's like one of those kids who's just like, yeah, I'll be out there sort of deal. So Ja'Cory Barney could be an interesting one to follow, but you could do it with this class. It's interesting. There's like 12 to 15 guys you could pick out, and someone could say, oh, that's my under the radar guy. And you could make a convincing argument for, and it's kind of the way this staff recruits. Yes, there's the headliners like Raiola and all that, but they very much trust their own evaluations. Roger Gradney's a guy who he has some 4-star status, but he doesn't get a ton of buzz, and he's just a great athlete that could probably play either side of the ball if you wanted him to. So there's all sorts of guys like that. And then if you want someone who just like has proven it this year, Keelan Smith. I wrote about him last night, the player of the year in Missouri. I mean, Neil Smith's son. The year he had as a receiver / tight end was incredible, leading his team to its first state title. So Keelan Smith, as far as guys in this class who had the best senior year, I'd say he had as good as any.
BC, I'm going to try to rush this one in. Got about 30 seconds because I was thinking about this away from Dylan Raiola. Who presented the biggest recruiting battle in your eyes and ended up being the biggest recruiting win because of it?
Oh, man, that's going to be a hard one. And I'm trying to think.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah. I'm not going to come up with a good answer on the spot. So and I hear the music, so I'll think about that for next week. But
my man, I'll save it.
All right, we'll save it. I like this class, and I like you guys having me on. I always appreciate it.
We appreciate you, BC.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, thanks. We won't talk to you next week because we'll be gone, but we will have you
2 weeks.
We'll have you back in a couple weeks. Happy holidays, BC. We appreciate you.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
See you, man.
That's Brian Christopherson. Coming up next, Andy Kendeigh from KETV here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters. It is their mission to support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands targets children who need them the most, including those living in single-parent homes, children in foster care, and those growing up in poverty or coping with parental incarceration. Go to mentoromaha.org to sign up to become a big, or you can get involved in other ways. You can donate money. You can donate tickets to events. You can invite them to your business to learn more about what you do in the community, or you can sponsor in participate in upcoming events. All of that can be found at mentoromaha.org. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our guy Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, how are you?
I'm good, boys. How are you?
Good,
we
AK.
Are doing well, man. Where are you bebopping around to this morning on National Signing Day?
I was at Westside early at 7:30, and then I went over to Michael Burt's because Creighton Prep's actually out of school for break, so he did his at his house. And so that was cool. And then now I'm at the station, throwing stuff in the car, and we're headed to Lincoln.
All right.
And
so a busy day for you.
I was going to say, yeah, you are you're having quite the busy day for Nebraska football as well. Tell us a little bit about the scene over at Westside. I know Caleb was signing with Nebraska. You had the Rizak signing with Notre Dame, and one that kind of flew under the radar, but low-key a great football player in the state of Nebraska this year, Bo Ryan, headed over to South Dakota. What was the scene like over at Westside?
It was good. Let's start with the Rizaks, because I think that, if there's news on signing day, usually that leads. So Teddy signed, Anthony did not.
Oh, okay.
The story there is that Anthony is just going to wait until February.
Oh,
and Notre Dame's totally on board with that. And said, hey, you know what? If you want to wait till February, all more power to you. So he did not sign. Today was Teddy's day, which was, cool for him, and the whole family and was out, and so that was a neat deal. And then obviously with Caleb it's such a unique deal because of his family and his dad and second generation Husker, which is just such a cool story. And I talked to BB after, and he's just so proud, and the thing that really stands out when you talk to either one of them is that this was not really a slam dunk. Like, people just assumed that he was going to go to Nebraska, and I think that really wasn't the case. So good on him for kind of wanting to do his own thing, and in the end, sure, that's where he wound up. And I think both Damon and Caleb thrilled with the decision. And I know Caleb can't wait. And one other guy, Preston Okafor.
That's right. Yeah.
Also signed with Nebraska as a preferred walk-on. So yeah. So and then driving over to Michael Burt's house.
Long walk for you.
That was a neat deal too. Yeah, he actually doesn't look too far from the west side, but it was a cool deal. I just love when it's not just the families, the extended families, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the little cousins running around, but it's the coaches who come over and take time. I've talked to Coach Yonk a little bit, and the teammates. That's the thing that gets me, because everybody's played on a team, right? Everybody had that one guy, and maybe it was you when you were in high school or whatever. But it is just cool to see the dynamics between the player signing and all of his buddies, and everybody giving each other grief, and like, hey, did you spell your name right? Stuff like that. It's just kind of a cool day that this only happens once for these high school kids, and I think both spots that I went to really was a special deal. And Matt Foster, I'm sitting across the desk from him right now, and he was out at Bellevue West, and all three of those guys are in the fold. So kind of a monumental day for Nebraska football, and one that we may look back on in years from now and say, hey, that was the day.
We've been hearing from fans all morning long, AK, and they've been echoing those same claims. You said a lot of great things there. I mean, the first reaction that I had to what you had to say about Caleb, Ravi and I just got done talking about this because a question I presented to Brian Christopherson going into the break, which we didn't end up getting to, was who presented the biggest recruiting battle in his eyes that ended up being the biggest recruiting win. And, the easy answer may be Carter Nelson because of the offer list that he had. But, if you really dig deep and think about it, it wasn't a slam dunk for Caleb Benning. He had some really strong pull to Wisconsin and K-State. And I'm not going to ask you to answer that question, but I just in reaction to what you had to say, I think you hit the nail on the head. What I did have a question on was, because Anthony didn't sign and he's waiting until February, is there a secret meaning to that at all? Are you thinking that same way, or are you no, it's Notre Dame and he's just actually waiting till February?
No, I think you got to think. I think you have to leave
I think AK, real fast. Let me butt in here. You now sound like a robot on the phone. Can we call you back? Can we just get you back on to answer?
How about this? Better?
Better? Keep going.
Am I better now?
Yes,
better now?
he's back.
Yes,
he's back. All
right.
Continue, please.
Sure. So I would think with the Anthony thing, I would think the I think it's just a kid who's just, keeping his options open. Of course, being a preferred walk-on at Notre Dame, that's a big deal. That's a great deal. But if there's a Power 5 program that wants to give him a scholarship offer to play quarterback, I think he's open. I think he would have to be open to that, right? And there's no harm, because February used to be the day, and there's really no harm in waiting, because the walk-on thing is going to be there. And Notre Dame has given them his blessings in terms of, take your time. If you want to sign, you take your time, do whatever. It just boggles my mind that at this point, there hasn't been a Power 5 program that says Anthony Rizak is the guy we want at quarterback. The kid's a winner, and is he the perfect quarterback in terms of throwing motion and arm strength and all that? No, but who is, right? So all I know is that what he did in high school was spectacular, and he's a proven winner. And it's a head scratcher to me that more schools aren't on this kid. And, whoever gets him, I think will be very, very pleased in the long run.
I mean, Andy, you're preaching to the choir on that one. I've been on that page all year long, and I hope that waiting till February does get him the Power 5 offer he so rightly deserves.
Right. Here, let me say this too.
Yeah.
Think about all the kids who are running around the metro today, and this side of the river and across the river, whatever. The player of the year in the state of Nebraska is Anthony Rizak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's something to that. And granted, he's playing on a great team, but they're a great team in part because Anthony Rizak is running the show, right? I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing that that there's some disconnect with me. Like, how is this? Why? It just doesn't make something just doesn't make sense, and that's one of the things that is puzzling to me, and it will continue to be.
Well, especially with his athletic profile. I mean, it's not like he's a 5'9" guy that runs a 5'6" 40, and he just happens to be on a really good high school team. Is a 6'4", 200-pound kid that runs in the 4.5s. Like, this is a high level athlete at the quarterback position that, like you said, has done nothing but win essentially at the high school level. So yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you, Andy. One other thing I wanted to get to before we let you go, I know that I'm not sure if you'll be there tonight, but I think I saw Matt Foster will be out there tonight at the Creighton game for the Doug McDermott jersey retirement ceremony. Just in the grand scheme of Creighton basketball and all this, how big of a deal is this that Doug McDermott kind of finally gets his moment to look back and honor his contributions to the program?
I think it's great and well-deserved and a long time coming. And I know a lot of it had to do with scheduling in terms of getting Doug on the same page in terms of when is there a game that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if your guy's playing in the NBA, it's not always going to be smooth sailing. So you got to figure out a day. And, because of this break between a game in Chicago and the game in Milwaukee, they were able to get him there on a day that is really a big deal for Creighton basketball as a whole. Mm-hmm. So I think it makes sense. He will go down as the greatest Creighton basketball player to have ever played for the Blue Jays, and he deserves it. I mean, he is what Creighton basketball is to this generation, and did nothing but shine a positive light on the school.
And I don't think it's overstating it that Creighton isn't in the place they are today without the contributions of Doug McDermott.
100%.
Andy Kendeigh from KETV, we appreciate you taking time out of your crazy busy day to join us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk to you again soon. Happy holidays as well.
All right. Happy holidays to you, fellas.
See ya. That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Coming up next, we will talk to our very own Anna Bellinghausen as we wrap up the signing day spectacular version of Hurrdat Sports Radio. Big day for Nebraska football. We will wrap up the show next here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We are brought to you by our friends at Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it. No matter what you're dealing with, call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. Speaking of trusted professionals, our colleague Anna Bellinghausen joins us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Anna, how are you this morning?
I really like that title. I think I'm going to change my own title to Trusted Professional. I love that, Ravi.
Seems like some people in Hurrdat Sports like to create titles for themselves. So
I need to create my own title. We'll figure it out. A radio host isn't good enough anymore. We'll figure something better out.
I don't know if I can call AB a trusted professional, though. Like sometimes, like, it's spotty. It's spotty, AB and I. Like, I don't know.
Anna, as we kind of go through signing day, I know that it's not necessarily your primary beat, but I know you stay tuned in to everything going on. How kind of just exciting is it being part of, a sports media team? I know that we're putting out a ton of content for signing day as well. Just how fun is it to be part of what seems like a really big day in Nebraska football?
Yeah, it is really exciting. I mean, you look at the recruiting class as well, and it's just full of stars. And honestly, just to see all the hype around it, I think it just gets you excited for football, especially in the absence of a bowl game, something that we can kind of, get excited about for next season and look forward to the spring game and the first game of the season. And of course, get Nebraska's hopes high again. I mean, what else is there to do every single year anyways? But no, it's great to see, and the coverage has been awesome. Also, I want to give a shout out to the Husker Twitter, etc., their social media.
Mm-hmm.
Those NCAA football EA videos have been insanely good.
I don't know if I've seen many of them.
Yeah, I've been watching those. They're kind of going.
I can't listen to the sound because our computers are muted. So do they have really good audio attached with it?
Yeah. And it's commentated everything. It's
it's basically they're basically doing the NCAA football EA Sports game with each of the recruits. It's a super cool idea, and especially with NCAA football 24 coming out, I'm super excited about that as well. Anna, let's move on to some stuff that you have either been at recently or you're going to be covering here for Hurrdat Sports. Let's kind of wanted to put a bow on our coverage of Nebraska volleyball this year. I know you were down in Tampa with some of our other teammates, and I guess what were just your biggest takeaways? Obviously, the way that it ended was super disappointing, but your takeaways in general from this volleyball season for Nebraska and what you experienced down in Tampa at the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the team specifically, I mean, the future is bright is pretty much all you can say. Most of the team was completely freshmen. They had 4 freshman starters. So now that they just have this under their belt of a national championship and experiencing a loss in that, and I think this will serve them well down the line, of course. And you just look at how many of these players are coming back. Basically, everyone's returning unless you're transferring out is essentially how it's working right now. And all those starters are poised to return. And the fact that you have the experience and even double the experience if you're someone like Allie Batenhorst and Lexi Rodriguez of losing a national championship twice now, it's got to fuel you, and you see all the talent you have surrounding you and the incoming freshmen even too. It has to be really exciting. And I just think in these next 3 years, there has to be a national championship waiting for the Cornhuskers. So really exciting. But beyond the actual play, I would just say the event in general. It's always a step up every year. In one of the press conferences, I asked John Cook what's different about this year, because, he's been to so many Final Fours and has been through this. And I thought he was going to talk about the team, what's different about the team, but instead he said the event. He's like, every single year it feels like they take a step up and they up their game of how they welcome the teams, how they do the media. It's on ABC now. So he was just really complimenting how the NCAA made it feel like volleyball wasn't an afterthought, because he mentioned in that interview, he's like, sometimes we just felt like an afterthought, oh, we have to do the volleyball championship. We have to do this. But now it's like, okay, we get to do this. There's so many eyeballs on the sport right now. And I think that was just really exciting. Becca Alec talked about it too, of, hey, this is just the start for volleyball and how big the sport's going to get, not only in Nebraska, but across the country. And I talked to every other team, beyond Nebraska, about just how Husker Nation supports and what Nebraska Day meant for volleyball. And Texas players, Wisconsin players were all very in tune with what Nebraska has brought to the table in terms of expanding the sport of volleyball and just getting it more viewership and selling out different arenas across the country. And everyone kind of always points to Nebraska, but I think everyone wants to make it bigger than just the state, which it obviously is, but I think it had to start somewhere, and Nebraska and Volleyball Day was kind of the catalyst of that. And you saw it pay off at the end of the year with how the volleyball championship was treated. It was on ABC, almost 2 million viewers on a Sunday, on an NFL Sunday too. So it's really good signs, not only for the Nebraska team, but also volleyball in general.
Tons of great memories, as you said, AB, Volleyball Day, NCAA tournament, the run they made, the come from behind win in the regular season against Wisconsin. There were just tons of great moments. But my question to you is this: what do you also think will have a lasting impact on this team going into next season?
I mean, I think it has to be losing in 3 sets to Texas. It's an easy answer and probably the most obvious, but I think you have to think about this loss almost every day. I mean, it's never going to leave your mind, and just having that happen to you on that stage will probably sit with them for a very long time. And I think it'll just fuel them even more. And you heard it in the press conference, and Harper Murray said it, and she's getting a lot of crap for it, of saying we want to win 3 national championships. I think we can do it. So I think it's going to light a fire under this team. And I think people talking about them and saying that might have been a cocky statement in the moment, I think that's going to fuel them too. And I mean, I'm not messing with the Nebraska volleyball team if I'm another NCAA opponent, but yeah, I think it has to be this loss and how Nebraska looked in that game. I mean, that was so not like that Nebraska team of not being able to receive a serve. And I think they're just going to look at the tape and say, man, like we have so much to prove of this team, and that doesn't define our season. Plenty of players said that after the game. So yeah, that's got to be the number one thing.
We're talking with Anna Bellinghausen of Hurrdat Sports. Just a few minutes left with you here, Anna. So I want to switch gears to Creighton basketball a little bit. Obviously a huge win for them over the weekend. I know you weren't able to be there because you were in Tampa, but I assume you will be at the game against Villanova tonight as they go to retire Doug McDermott's jersey. As Creighton starts off Big East play with this huge matchup against Villanova, how would you grade their early, say, the first third of the season so far?
Yeah, I mean, you look at those 2 losses and they're games that you wish you could have back, of course, but I also think back to last year. This team lost 6 games in a row and still went to the Elite Eight. So I don't think there's any sort of panic for Greg McDermott. I don't think there's any panic within the team. And I mean, if I gave it a letter grade, it'd probably be around a B. And I think there's room for improvement, of course, in the losses. And even against Alabama, I mean, you lose Ryan Kalkbrenner there, and you have to find ways to protect the rim. And I think that's going to fall on the shoulders of Fred King. And I think we might see a limited Ryan Kalkbrenner tonight. So that's going to be a big question mark of how can Fred King step up and how can other players step up to protect the paint. But yeah, I think it's still a great start for McDermott and company, and they've done, I think, a great job to this point, maneuvering through that non-conference schedule and getting the wins they should have gotten, but also, you know, you look at ones that you wish you could have back, but that's okay, and that's part of the season that they're in, of course, with the non-conference slate and finding out who they are, what works, what doesn't work, and now I think they have a good grasp on, hey, this is the things that we do that make us lose. And now they can kind of snowball that into conference play, and they face a really good Villanova team that has their bad nights too, but has also beaten North Carolina and Memphis, top 25 teams. So it's a team that might be a little confusing just of their caliber that they're at, but you know that it's a team that can beat you on any night, and a team that Creighton can go out and beat as well. So I think they can't take Villanova lightly, and I don't think they will, but it's going to be an electric night at CHI. You mentioned the Doug McDermott retirement, and there's going to be a lot of emotion, so we'll see how they handle it.
Jersey retirement. He's still going to be playing for the Spurs after tonight.
Yes, jersey retirement. They're not retiring the man.
Yeah, they're not like putting him out to pasture or anything. Anna, we appreciate your time. We love talking to you as always, and we will catch you again.
Catch you on the flip side.
Catch you on the flippity flop. All right, Anna, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
That's Anna Bellinghausen, our Hurrdat Sports colleague. We appreciate Anna and her time. They put out a ton of great content from the Final Fours. Her, Jacob, John, and Kyle did a great job down there in Tampa, so we appreciate them for sure. That is our show for today. Tomorrow, we will be back. Have a great lineup for you. We will recap. Maybe we'll have some surprises from Ryan Wingo today. Maybe, I don't know.
That'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. I think that might lead the show if that happens. But we will recap signing day. We also have our regular Thursday guests as well. We'll have a great show for you. Appreciate everybody chiming in on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. And, of course, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. We'll have more Hurrdat Sports Radio tomorrow.
Adios.